Now, while the rest of the world is on track with their vaccine programs and opening up their international borders, here in Australia, we're at peak hysteria. The Delta variant is viewed as unbeatable. Our international borders are all but shut tight. And our domestic borders, well, there are changes every week. And our biggest and fastest growing city remains in lockdown with no certainty of an end date. Now, police have been set in to those hotspot areas to ensure that residents are following the rules. But businesses there and beyond are still closed, crippled with no income stream, no guarantee on when they might reopen, and some may never reopen again. The Australian Industry Group CEO is Willox, and he joins us right now. Innes, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Chris. Good to see you.
Yeah, another lockdown, now an extended lockdown, and no real support like the kind of support we received last year.
Well, lockdowns are the thing that business fears most. They're the thing that probably the community fears most. They do enormous damage, almost incalculable damage to the economy, to individual businesses, to cities. What lockdowns do, Chris, is that they stop continuity, they stop momentum, and they destroy confidence. And that's what happens every time there's a lockdown. So we calculated, it was on the front of the Daily Telly this morning, that this lockdown was costing about $1 billion a week.
But it's only a light lockdown, right? It's not like a Melbourne lockdown. It's a light lockdown and still $1 billion a week.
That's correct, because what it does is, as you mentioned, businesses are closed. It means spending is delayed or deferred or quite simply doesn't happen. Opportunities are foregone. You add it all up, it's enormously expensive. And you now have, this is, so people look at it in the front, up the front, and they look at the streets and they see, well, cafes are closed, restaurants are closed, all of those sort of things. Then you've got to think about all the businesses that supply into them, all the businesses that are transporting to them. This has massive knock-on effects, ripple effects right across the economy. It impacts jobs. You've had people stood down now from jobs. It has, and then it means it takes a long time to get back up, and it gets into the psyche of businesses that we are now in a rolling cycle of lockdowns, and there's more to come. And that's why the vaccine is so important, because it's one way out for Australia. It could lead to the great freedom, as it were, and the great freedom would be the end of border closures, the end of international border being closed, freer movement of people, businesses knowing that they can stay open and no more lockdowns. That's the situation that we want to get to. And while Sydney is still in a lockdown, the whole economy suffers. You've got to remember, Sydney-Melbourne was the third biggest airline route in the world before COVID hit. And now, it runs very intermittently because, of border closures between the two or closures within one city or another.
See, we had a bloated job seeker, we had the creation of JobKeeper, and even still, according to ASIC figures, we've had 5,517 liquidations in just the past financial year, and that doesn't count June. You've got to put a face and a family to those liquidations, and I can imagine the pain that's going on at the moment.
And employees as well, who are also impacted by this, and businesses who supply into those businesses. So this really does ripple. And the concern, Chris, the business has is, look, despite all the support from the federal government through JobKeeper and other programs and the support now that the Prime Minister has sort of updated and increased today, the state government support in New South Wales, that doesn't replace a business being open and a business being able to operate and interact with its customers. And, the thought that there could be more lockdowns in the months ahead across any part of Australia, really, that sends a shiver down the spine of businesses who operate nationally. They are incredibly disruptive and have an enormous impact, not just on the economic health of companies, but also the mental health of employees and the like, all of which business has to bear the brunt of. So, Chris, the one thing we'd hope for is that lockdowns become a thing of the past, but if not that, they become the last resort, not the first resort. And that's what we need to get to.
What did you make of the fact that we hear that the New South Wales Treasurer argued strongly that the lockdown wasn't extended in New South Wales, and the Premier decided against that advice. He is the Treasurer.
Well, Chrissy, who knows what happened in the cabinet subcommittee? But I think there is now real concern among many that we've essentially been run by health officials, health bureaucrats, for a very long time. And that's I'm not dissing Kerry Chant in any way. I think many would argue she's been far and away the best. But there has to be a broader conversation than just the immediate health needs around the virus. There are ways, you'd referred to, it's been referred to earlier, social distancing, masks and the like, which are alternatives to wide-scale lockdowns. But there has to be broader conversations, and governments, we've been saying this for a long time, need to listen to a broader patchwork of advice before making these determinations and working their way through the consequences of these sort of decisions because of the broader impacts they have, economic, business, and also broader health as well. The education outcomes, all of these sort of things have got to factor into these decisions.
Closing schools just defies logic to me. Ines, Willox, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Chris. You take care.